The blizzard came without warning, transforming the mountain pass into a swirling white nightmare. Sienna Rivera gripped the steering wheel of her rental car, squinting through the windshield as snow pelted the glass faster than her wipers could clear it. She had been chasing the perfect shot all day, photographing elk in their winter habitat. And now nature was reminding her who was really in charge. The GPS had stopped working 20 minutes ago, and her phone showed no signal. The smart thing would have been to turn back hours ago, but Sienna had never been accused of playing it safe. That reckless streak had won her 3 national photography awards and cost her 2 serious relationships. Men tended to resent coming second to a camera lens. Through the white curtain of snow, she spotted lights. The Pine Ridge Mountain Resort emerged like a mirage, its warm windows promising safety and shelter. Sienna exhaled in relief and carefully navigated the final quarter mile to the parking area. Inside the lobby, she stamped snow from her boots and pulled off her wool hat, releasing a cascade of honey blonde hair. The resort was smaller than she expected, rustic and charming, with exposed wooden beams and a massive stone fireplace crackling with orange flames. "Thank God you're open," she said to the elderly woman behind the desk. "I need a room for the night." The woman's expression turned apologetic. "I'm so sorry, dear. We're completely full. The storm caught a lot of people off guard, and we've been booked solid for hours." Sienna's heart sank. "Is there anywhere else nearby?" "Nothing within 30 miles, and the roads are completely impassable now. The highway patrol just closed the pass." The woman hesitated. "There is one possibility. A gentleman checked in an hour ago and took our last room, but when I mentioned we were turning people away, he offered to share if necessary. It's a suite with a separate sitting area and pull-out couch." "I'll take it," Sienna said immediately. Sleeping on a stranger's couch beat freezing in her car. "Let me call up and make sure he's still agreeable." The woman picked up the phone and had a brief conversation. "Room 207. He's expecting you." Sienna hauled her photography equipment and overnight bag down the hallway, her boots leaving wet prints on the hardwood floor. She knocked on the door of 207, and it opened to reveal a man who made her breath catch. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair that fell across his forehead in a way that suggested he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes were an intense shade of amber brown, intelligent and guarded. He wore jeans and a charcoal sweater that emphasized broad shoulders, and when he stepped aside to let her in, she caught the scent of sandalwood and something distinctly masculine. "Dante Moretti." He introduced himself, extending a hand. His grip was firm and warm. "You must be my unexpected roommate, Sienna Rivera, and I really appreciate this. I promise I'll stay out of your way." She set her bags down and looked around the suite. It was spacious and well-appointed, with the bedroom visible through an open door, a small sitting area with a couch and armchairs, and a kitchenette. "The storm's supposed to last through the night," Dante said, moving to the window where snow continued to fall in thick sheets. "We're stuck here until morning, at least." Sienna studied him more carefully. There was tension in the line of his shoulders, something weighing on him that had nothing to do with the weather. His luggage sat unopened near the bedroom door, and she noticed a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the side table. "Running away or running toward something?" she asked, surprising herself with the directness. Dante turned from the window, one eyebrow raised. "That's a personal question for someone you just met. We're going to be stuck together all night. Might as well skip the small talk." She shrugged out of her wet jacket and hung it over a chair near the fireplace. "I'm running away, for what it's worth. From expectations. From a career that's starting to feel like a cage. From a life that looks perfect on social media, but feels empty in reality." Something shifted in Dante's expression, the guarded look softening slightly. "Running away," he admitted. "From a failed engagement. From a business partnership that imploded. From a city full of memories I'd rather forget." "What happened?" Sienna asked gently. "She cheated with my business partner. They're getting married next month." He laughed without humor. "I found out 3 weeks before our wedding. Caught them together at the office I designed for us. I'm sorry." Sienna moved closer, drawn by the raw pain in his voice. "That's brutal. What about you? What are you running from?" The realization that I've spent 10 years building a career and forgotten to build a life. She settled onto the couch, tucking her legs under her. I'm 32 years old, and I can't remember the last time I went on a date or had dinner with friends. I've photographed love stories all over the world, but I've never let myself be part of one. Dante poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed her one. To running away, to unexpected shelter in storms, she countered, clinking her glass against his. They talked as the fire crackled and the wind howled outside. Dante told her about his architectural firm, the projects he'd designed with passion before betrayal had poisoned everything. Sienna shared stories from her travels, the incredible moments she'd captured through her lens, and the loneliness that came with always being an observer rather than a participant. Hours passed without notice. They moved from whiskey to the bottle of wine Dante had brought, sharing the cheese and crackers from the resort's welcome basket. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and moments of comfortable silence. "Can I see your work?" Dante asked as midnight approached. Sienna hesitated, then retrieved her laptop and showed him her portfolio. He studied each image with an architect's eye for composition and light, asking thoughtful questions about her process and vision. "These are extraordinary," he said finally, lingering on a photograph of 2 wolves touching noses in a snowy forest. "You capture intimacy, not just between subjects, but between the viewer and the moment. You make people feel something." The compliment landed differently than the praise of critics and judges. Coming from this wounded, guarded man, who was slowly opening up to her, it felt genuine and meaningful. "Thank you," she said softly, acutely aware of how close they were sitting, their knees almost touching on the small couch. Dante met her eyes, and the air between them shifted, charged with something neither had expected when this evening began. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting dancing shadows across the suite. Outside, the blizzard continued its assault on the mountain, but inside, Sienna and Dante had created their own world, insulated from everything beyond these walls. "Show me something you've never shared publicly," Dante said, his voice low and curious. "Something you keep just for yourself." Sienna bit her lip, considering. Then she opened a hidden folder on her laptop, revealing a series of self-portraits she'd taken over the years. They weren't polished or professional, just raw, honest glimpses of herself in various moments of vulnerability, joy, sadness, and strength. "These are who I am when no one's watching," she explained. "When I'm not the successful photographer or the adventurous traveler. Just me, figuring out who that is." Dante studied each image with intense focus. In one, she was laughing, her hair wild and eyes bright with genuine happiness. In another, tears streaked her cheeks as she stared at the camera with devastating honesty. A third showed her standing at the edge of a cliff, arms spread wide, embracing solitude, or perhaps crying out against it. "You're braver than you think," he said finally. "Most people spend their whole lives hiding from themselves. You look directly at who you are, even when it hurts." "What about you?" Sienna challenged. "What do you hide?" Dante set down his wine glass and pulled out his phone. He showed her sketches and designs he'd never shown anyone, architectural dreams that had nothing to do with commercial viability or client demands. A library designed like a forest, with columns shaped like trees and skylights that filtered light like a canopy. A home built into a hillside, nearly invisible from the outside, but filled with light and space within. A memorial garden where water and stone and living plants created spaces for grief and healing. "These are beautiful," Sienna breathed, zooming in on details. "Why haven't you built any of them?" "Fear," he admitted. "Fear that they're too personal, too revealing. Fear that they won't work in reality. Fear that if I try and fail, I'll have nothing left to dream about." "That's a lonely way to live," Sienna observed gently. "Safer, maybe, but lonely," says the woman who admitted she's forgotten how to let people in. His tone was teasing but understanding. "Tut," she smiled. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? Two people who've gotten very good at protecting themselves and very bad at living." Dante shifted closer, and Sienna's breath caught. The warmth of his body radiated across the small distance between them. and she found herself hyper-aware of every detail. The faint stubble along his jaw, the way his throat moved when he swallowed, the intensity in his amber eyes that suggested he was wrestling with the same attraction she felt. "Can I tell you something?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "When you walked through that door tonight, soaking wet and determined, I thought you were the most alive person I'd seen in months. Everyone else has been tiptoeing around me, treating me like I'm broken. But you just asked me straight out what I was running from. Are you broken?" Sienna asked, matching his quiet tone a little. "But I'm starting to think broken things can still be beautiful. Like that Japanese art of repairing pottery with gold, making the cracks part of the design, kintsugi," she supplied. "The philosophy that breakage and repair are part of the object's history, not something to hide." "Exactly." Dante reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek, and Sienna leaned into the touch, her eyes closing briefly at the simple contact. "Dante," she said, opening her eyes to meet his gaze, "I haven't done this in a very long time. Let someone close. I mean, I'm not sure I remember how. Neither have I. Not really. My engagement was comfortable and convenient. But it wasn't this." He gestured between them, at the charged air and undeniable connection. "I never felt like she really saw me. We were playing roles for each other." "I see you," Sienna said, the words simple but heavy with meaning. "I see someone who creates beauty, but is afraid to believe in it. Someone who's been hurt, but hasn't let it make him cruel. Someone who offered a stranger shelter when he could have kept his sanctuary to himself. I see you too." Dante's thumb traced along her jawline. "Someone who chases light and truth with a camera, but hides her own light from the world. Someone who's brave enough to stand at the edge of cliffs, but scared to stand at the edge of her own heart." The truth of his words hit her chest, and suddenly she was moving, closing the distance between them, her hands coming up to frame his face as she kissed him. It started gentle, exploratory, two wounded people testing whether they could still feel something real. Then Dante's arms came around her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened into something desperate and necessary. They broke apart, both breathing hard, foreheads resting together. "We should stop," Dante said, though his hands remained on her waist, his thumbs tracing small circles through her sweater. "Why?" Sienna's voice was husky. "Because you deserve better than a rebound. Because we just met. Because tomorrow you'll leave, and this will just be a story about a snowstorm." "Or," Sienna countered, her hands sliding to his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. "Tomorrow I'll leave knowing I was brave enough to feel something real, even if it was brief. Knowing I stopped running long enough to stand still with someone who understands." Sienna, her name on his lips, sounded like a prayer and a question. "Take me to bed." "Dante," she held his gaze, wanting him to see that she meant it, that this wasn't impulse or loneliness, but genuine desire. "Not because we're running away, but because for one night, we're running toward something, toward being seen and held, and reminded that we're still capable of feeling." He stood, drawing her up with him, and led her toward the bedroom. At the threshold, he paused. "Tell me what you need," he said, his voice rough with desire and tenderness. "Tell me how to make this good for you." "Go slow," she whispered, her voice trembling with anticipation and vulnerability. "I want to remember every moment." Dante kept his promise. In the bedroom, with only the ambient light from the sitting room's dying fire, he undressed her with reverent attention, each revealed inch of skin greeted with gentle touches and soft kisses. Sienna had forgotten what it felt like to be explored rather than simply desired, to be discovered rather than just wanted. Her sweater came off first, then his, their hands, learning the topography of each other's bodies. She traced the muscles of his shoulders and back, feeling strength and tension held carefully in check. He mapped the curve of her waist and hips, murmuring appreciation against her neck in a way that made her shiver. "You're trembling," he noted, pausing. "Are you cold?" "No," she admitted. "Nervous. It's been 3 years since I've been with anyone, and even then, it was nothing like this." "Like what?" His hand stilled, giving her space to find words. "Like I matter. Like I'm not just a body, but a person. You want to know. She met his eyes in the dimness. Like maybe being vulnerable isn't the same as being weak. Dante kissed her then, slow and deep, conveying without words that he understood. His hands resumed their exploration, but gently, always checking her reactions, responding to every sigh and gasp with focused attention. They moved to the bed, and clothes continued to disappear until there was nothing between them but honesty and desire. Sienna ran her hands over his chest, feeling scars and imperfections that made him real rather than ideal. He did the same, kissing the freckles on her shoulders, the small scar on her ribs from a climbing accident, the stretch marks on her hips that she'd always hidden. Perfect, he murmured, against her skin. And she almost believed him. When they finally came together, it was with a tenderness that bordered on worship. Dante moved slowly, true to her whispered request, giving her time to adjust and respond. He watched her face, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into him, what made her fingers dig into his shoulders. Is this good? He asked, his voice strained with the effort of control. Yes, she breathed. Don't stop. Just like this. He showed her a patience she hadn't known existed, building sensation gradually, checking in with whispered questions and reading her body's responses. When she urged him faster, he complied. When she asked him to slow again, savoring the intensity, he did without hesitation. Sienna felt tears slip from the corners of her eyes. Not from pain, but from the overwhelming intimacy of being truly seen in her most vulnerable state. Dante kissed them away, maintaining eye contact, letting her see his own emotional exposure. I've got you, he promised. Let go. I've got you. And she did, surrendering to sensation and emotion in a way she'd never allowed herself before. When release came, it swept through her entire body, and she cried out his name, holding onto him as her anchor in the storm of feeling. Dante followed moments later, her name a rough prayer on his lips, his body shuddering with the force of his own completion. Afterward, they lay tangled together, hearts slowly returning to normal rhythms, hands still touching as if breaking contact might break the spell. The blizzard had finally quieted outside, leaving in profound silence broken only by their breathing. That was, Sienna started, then laughed softly. I don't have words. Neither do I. Dante pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. But I know I don't want this to be just one night. We live in different cities. We're both running from things. This is complicated. The best things usually are. He tilted her chin up so she'd meet his eyes. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying I want to try. Want to stop running and start building something real with someone who sees me. Sienna felt fear and hope warring in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to protect herself, to leave in the morning and file this away as a beautiful memory. But a stronger voice, one she'd been ignoring for years, insisted that some risks were worth taking. I'm scared, she admitted. I've spent so long alone that I don't know how to be with someone. I'm terrified, Dante countered. I just had my heart broken by someone I thought I knew. Trusting again feels impossible. But, she heard the unspoken word hanging between them. But you asked me earlier if I was broken, and I said maybe a little. If we're both broken, maybe we can practice kintsugi together. Repair each other with gold instead of hiding our cracks. Sienna kissed him, pouring into it all the hope and fear and yearning she couldn't quite articulate. When they broke apart, she smiled against his lips. I want to try. I want to be brave enough to stop running. They made love again as dawn approached, slower this time, with less desperation and more certainty, learning each other's rhythms and responses with patient attention, building memory in muscles and skin. When morning came, pale winter sunlight filtered through the windows, revealing a world transformed by snow. The storm had passed, leaving everything clean and new and full of possibility. They stood at the window together, wrapped in the sheet, watching the sun paint the snow in shades of pink and gold. What happens now? Sienna asked. Now, we exchange phone numbers and make plans to see each other again. We take it slow, figure out logistics, and try not to let fear talk us out of something that feels this right. Dante turned her to face him. I'll visit you. You'll visit me. We'll video call and text terrible jokes and learn each other's daily rhythms. And maybe, if we're both brave enough, we'll build something lasting, one night at a time." Sienna agreed. "One night at a time," he confirmed. "Starting with tonight, if you're willing to stay another day." She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I think I can rearrange my schedule." They spent another day and night snowbound together, talking, laughing, making love, and planning a future neither had expected to want. And when Sienna finally drove away 2 days later, it wasn't running away anymore. It was running toward something, toward someone, toward the terrifying and exhilarating possibility of letting herself be known and loved. 6 months later, Sienna's photograph of Dante's shadow against newly fallen snow would win another national award. The title was simple but meaningful: "The Night Everything Changed." Only the two of them would know. It wasn't really about photography at all.